Okay, we're on here with Rob Shabansky at Gateway Community College. And for those of you guys who don't know, Rob, how long have you been at Gateway for?
It kind of pains me to say this, but 15 years now. This started my 15th year, and obviously kind of maybe a half year, I guess. I don't know.
We like to do that 15-year challenge where we put our face up for one half, our second face from 15 years later on. Mine would probably get a little bigger, a little higher hairline for me. But the first part, Rob, I want you to do is kind of give people your playing and coaching background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I grew up in Las Vegas, probably one of the few that were born and raised in Las Vegas. I went to two high schools. Went to Bonanza High School for my first 2 years and Bishop Gorman my last 2 years. And fortunately enough, I was able to go to University of Arizona right away. Got there in my first year, spring of '96. Ended up being down there for 5 years. I had 2 Tommy John surgeries while I was there, so that was a lot of fun. And in 2000, my senior season, I was able to sign with the Arizona Diamondbacks right afterwards and spent a few seasons with them. And then, spent a little bit of time in independent ball after I was done. And then finally I was, 26 years old, and I just knew the game was kind of over for me at that point in time. And then moved down to Phoenix and was working here and got in touch with Victor Solis, who was the head coach of Paradise Valley and was one of my assistant coaches while I was in college. And he got me roped into this coaching thing, and so I started out at Gateway in, 2006 as an assistant coach for the first 2.5 years. And then, in 2008, about halfway through, Coach Solis got the head job at Paradise Valley, and then I stayed on ever since.
Awesome. Well,
so,
I want to hit on kind of, the fact you had 2 Tommy John surgeries. My question would be, with pitchers now in arm soreness and, arm injuries kind of going up in the last 15 years, what can you lean on as far as your own experience to high school and college pitchers that have soreness as far as, how bad it is, what they should be doing for some of those things?
Yeah, I would say I was one of those guys that I couldn't say no, and it was completely my fault. The first time, I had some elbow tenderness going on, had some tendonitis, didn't really say much, just kept trying to pitch through it. And it finally went. And then, my second one while I was rehabbing, I rushed my timetable way too quick. I was just a guy that didn't listen to my body well enough. And I would say for the kids nowadays watching travel ball and high school baseball and things like that, they're pitching too much. It's not on enough routine. Their body's not ready for the intent of what they're trying to do, and they're not strong enough. And I see it with these throwing programs that they go through too, to try and add velocity so fast, so early, that their body just can't handle the intent of what they're trying to actually accomplish. And you know what? When they're paying someone to do something, they're going to keep trying to grind through it, and they just don't slow down. Development takes a long time.
Good, really, really good answer. Before we kind of get into your college coaching, I kind of want to touch on your experience as a 15U and 16U USA coach as well. What I'd like you kind of shed light on is, what differences do you see in 15, 16-year-olds now versus 10, 12 years ago, from either skill set standpoint, mentality standpoint, good and bad?
Yeah, you know what? I've been really fortunate. I've seen a lot of changes. So the first trials I ever went to was in 2009. And I was able to see guys like Albert Almora and Francisco Lindor and guys like that who were just incredible players. And then in 2010 and 11, I was the pitching coach on the 16U national team. And we didn't have one 15-year-old kid I take that back. We had one 15-year-old kid make the team in 2011, Joe Demers. And, as funny as it sounds, he was 86, 88 with a pretty good breaking ball as a 15-year-old. Our 16-year-old guys were just more advanced at that point in time. And they're physical, really physical. Our 2010 team, our first baseman was Matt Olson. Our second baseman was Alex Bregman. Our shortstop was Corey Seager. Carson Kelly is now the catcher for the Diamondbacks, was probably one of our better pitchers on that team and played right field. Albert Almora was in center. We had numerous big leaguers on that team, and obviously their skill set was really, really good. And then fast forward, Now I've been able to be the pitching coach in 2015, 16, was the manager in 2017. I was the pitching coach in 2019 for the 15U team. I would say the 15-year-olds and 14-year-olds, for that matter, are much more advanced. They have a better, I would say, from the bad side of it is that they are more of like showcase type guys. They can go out and really, throw hard. They can run fast, hit balls a long ways. And then you backtrack it to like 2009 and 10. I think their baseball IQ was much better. And not saying that their baseball IQ now is bad by any means, but just back then, you didn't the explosion of the perfect games and the PBRs and Rapsodo and Blast and all these devices and sensors. They didn't have access to it. It was more about feel, and now they're kind of getting into some data analytics, which is good, which is really good. But I would say they're much more physical now. They're much more regimented, and they are much more in a hurry to commit to schools at 14 and 15 years old than they were 10 years ago.
Right. I think you at one point mentioned that you had a kid that was looking at colleges at 14. He hadn't chosen his high school just yet, too. So the timeline's kind of got jacked up on that one. So going back to Gateway, you guys are Division II junior college. So I'd like you to explain again, really, what is a Division II junior college, and then kind of how does that parlay into recruiting in-state and out-of-state players?
Yeah, so as a NJCA Division II school, the most that we can offer anybody is books, tuition, and fees. So cannot offer room and board, where the Division I schools can't have that. Now you can declare if you want to be Division I or Division II. As you know, South Mountain in the Phoenix area is Division I, but they cannot offer room and board. They could still only offer books, tuition, and fees. But on top of that, within Maricopa County, we are restricted to certain things. We can only offer athletic scholarships or athletic aid to Arizona residents, which is a change from when I first started. When I first started, it was only Maricopa County residents. And, so, there is some differences between us, obviously not being able to recruit, I shouldn't say, not being able to offer athletic aid to out-of-state student athletes is tough. I mean, we're trying to get kids in here, the best ball players that we can find. And, it takes a special kid and a special family to be able to come here outside of Arizona and essentially be willing to walk on or only take institutional aid. So that's a big difference between us and the Division I's. Obviously, we compete at the same level. We're day in, day out. It's a grind. This conference is a grind.
Well, one of the things I tell our families all the time is that playing high school baseball is convenient. You get 3 games a week. Your field's pretty nice. You have good weather. You live at home with your parents. You get food done for you, laundry done for you. And a lot of times college is inconvenient, and it's not always what you think, what you see on TV. So explain to you, obviously you guys have some things a little bit different. Your field's not on campus. So some of the things that a player may encounter in junior college that they may think, oh, I got to do this now. I got to do what exactly?
Yeah, we are different. Our field is not on campus. Up until this past year, we didn't even have a weight room on our campus. Now we do have that. So, yeah, I was listening to a podcast by Dallas Braden the other day and talking about his junior college experience, that it is a grind. It is inconvenient. You don't have everything at your disposal. You don't have someone washing your uniforms, on campus. You don't have someone, doing the little things for you. I mean, it's, you're going to go to school, you're going to get in your car or take a van over to Gene Autry Park, get out and get ready to get after it, which again, for us is completely different. And, some people see it as a super inconvenience, and we've lost recruits that way. Because they don't feel like they want to drive around that much. And other people see it as a positive thing, where it's a separator from my academic stuff to my baseball. And we just get away from campus and go do our thing. Years ago, I mean, that was the biggest thing that we fought. Now, with ASU and U of A both being off campus, it's not quite as a foreign idea.
When you get an email from players, and I know the coaches get a lot of emails, first of all, the first part of the question would be, what's your process for receiving emails? And the second part of that question would be, What do you like and what do you not like?
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we get tons of emails, and especially during this COVID thing. I mean, I think every junior college coach's inbox and cell phones are blowing up right now with players trying to find a home. But, I go through every day, I sit down and take out an hour and just go through every player email that I get to look at. I will say, the things that I like is that if they're personalized, then I know someone to take some time to actually type something out, not copy and paste it. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten emails saying, Coach Shabansky, I'm really interested in your university, or, I really want to come play at South Mountain Community College. And I'm like, well, thanks, Timmy, but, I don't coach at South, but I could forward that email on if you'd like. Um, so, but, obviously the personal email, a video attached or a link to their video. I will say a lot of the bigger services, like the NSRs and NCSAs, I will look at them, but I know that they are blasted out across the country, where services like yours and some of the smaller services that I know that are specifically targeting, areas where kids can play. Because, every coach can say this, we get lots of emails a day that probably have kids that can't play for our programs. But, I think you have to do your due diligence as a coach and as a player to write it out, be specific, and make sure that you're not missing on a guy.
How do you sort through all the mediums that are out there? You mentioned a couple of them, our service, NCSA and NSR, but also Perfect Game, PG. I mean, it seems like now there's so much information. There's not too many secrets anymore. And so to me, it's almost like an overload of information. How do you kind of stack that info up, and what do you do with all of it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's blown up over the years, just the amount of information you can find on a kid. I mean, there's no more, nobody knows about this guy. It just doesn't exist. I mean, somebody knows about this guy. But, I actually use it to cross-check guys. I'll use PBR, Perfect Game, Prospect Wire, things like that. I'll use it to cross-check guys to see, potentially, kids will email me and say, hey, I'm 86, 88. Well, I can go to PBR, Prospect Wire, Perfect Games, find something and go, well, it shows that you topped out at 83 2 months ago. Um, you know, and a lot of it, the rankings and things like that, I don't take into account at all. Really, the things that I'm looking at are just kind of tangibles. What's their 60 time? What's their velos? What's their exit velos? What's their infield velocity or outfield velocities? Something that's tangible. Ranking is subjective. So everybody can rank anybody however they want. So I just use it to cross-check and cross-reference guys.
Good. We joke a lot of times on, how players communicate with college coaches, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if you were giving advice to juniors, seniors, and sophomores in high school, they're talking to college coaches, what would you tell them some do's and don'ts are of that?
I mean, the first thing I tell anyone is to be honest. Just be completely honest, and if it sounds brutally honest, it's okay. And I know we kid about this all the time, but one of the famous lines is, yes, I'm looking to keep my options open. Never say that. Bad line. That, like you said the other day, it just sounds like, hey, you know what? If everything else falls through, then I'll consider you guys. So that's a lot of times, that's a big red flag for me when I talk to kids. Typically I'll text the kid, or call him, just say, hey, are you interested in learning more about our program? The thing that I would say, if you are interested, just be honest. Yes, love to hear more about your program. Because kids will try and do their own research and look at websites and stuff like that, and that doesn't really tell the depth of the program itself. It maybe gives you a history and a background, but it doesn't tell you about the coaches, what their philosophies are, things like that. It's about finding the right fit. Again, and some of the don'ts is don't just not respond. Don't wait for 5-6 days to respond to a coach. If a coach responds to you, it's 2020. You can send a text and email back. It's all on your phone. You don't have to log onto a computer. You don't have to wait for dial-up internet anymore. You can go ahead and get it done. But be proactive, be honest, and be willing to listen.
Good. Kind of going back just a little bit there, you mentioned some metrics on different mediums, but also you mentioned technology. I know you're kind of getting into more of the technology. So the question would be, what do you like so far that's out there? And then how are you utilizing that to coach your players once they're on campus?
Yeah, I really like Rapsodo. We got one last year. I really like the feedback that it gives us in a bullpen environment. It allows guys to compete a little bit more. Blast data, blast motion is something we just got. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about it. I can tell you that the players have liked it so far. The only thing that I maybe dislike a little bit about Rapsodo is you got young guys and they kind of get wrapped up too much into the numbers and they kind of just forget how to compete. You get these really detailed PDF reports and a lot of numbers and a lot of metrics, and sometimes guys get wrapped up way too much into it and they want to be on the Rapsodo all the time. And I still think pitching, hitting, things like that, you have to go back to feel. You have to find it and feel it, and just not get overwhelmed by numbers.
That reminds me of a story where I was watching this kid and he went through like a 1-2-3 inning. He had 7 pitches, like a K and 2 groundouts. And he comes off the field, what was my velo? I'm like, well, you did have a really good inning. So we'll get to that stuff after the game. So I think it's a good point of the balancing of numbers and actually pitching and feeling. 2 last questions. With COVID going on, how does that change recruiting? Obviously 20s, but 21s as well. How does that change, college rosters numbers, but also the possibility of impacting potential recruits in subsequent classes?
Yeah, I think this is going to go probably 100 different ways. To be honest, the junior college level, I think you're going to see an explosion of players. I think it's really good for us. I think we're going to get a lot of good players. I think a lot of guys that maybe were considering going to their Division I commitment, may not go if the player in front of them doesn't get drafted, and them getting their eligibility back. To us in the recruiting side of it, it's going to be really hard. We have to look at video. We have to look at metrics. We have to see some of these things. Obviously they just lifted the NJCAA ban, so we can get out and face-to-face recruit right now. But obviously there's still not a whole lot going on. So, anytime we can get out to go see a kid, we're going to try. But we got to look at video. We got to know the people that they're with. We got to trust their high school coaches, their club coaches, their advisors, things like that. That people are going to help us make a determination on some guys. And, I was talking about this with some of my assistant coaches the other day. We may consider having kids take a gap year, come into our program where we might be, as bad as it sounds, flooded with players. And, instead of starting their NCAA clock, consider to take a gap year, go part-time, and then get ready to play next year when rosters start to normalize a little bit. But I think for the next few years, those are the types of things we're going to have to do. And, and moving forward, we're going to have to get really creative with it.
Good. Well, I talked about the field not being on campus and sometimes not being convenient, but obviously you guys have a lot to offer with good parts. Why don't you tell people why Gateway Community College? What are the pluses of going to Gateway to play college baseball?
Yeah, I honestly, I think really the great things about going to Gateway Community College, one, obviously any community college, smaller numbers in the classroom. So academically, teachers are going to know you. People are there to help you. Everybody knows our athletics department on campus. So people are vested in seeing you succeed. And really for us, what we can offer, I really think our coaches do a good job in developing players. Kind of our mantra is we're trying to coach every kid individually and not do it through a team perspective, to make every individual player the best player that they could be. Obviously we're going to have our team stuff and things like that. But as we all know, what works for one doesn't work for another. So we've got to take the time and do our due diligence with every kid and find out, what makes them tick. Even though, like I said, our field might not be on campus, we might not have a lot of the hoopla and things like that, but we have everything that you need to succeed. Like I said, we have Rapsodo and Blast, and we have ARM software to help guys stay on top of things. And obviously, we're gonna be there every step of the way from your academic advising through your teaching and coaching. And actually, we just got another product now called Sports Analytics, that helps us give a sports psychology mental assessment on every player we have to kind of see what makes them tick, to maybe coach them better, from the mental side. And that's a big thing that we preach here, is that at some point in time, everybody's going to catch up to you athletically. The big separator is going to be mental.
Good. One add-on question there. We joke sometimes about, like, some of these guys come back to junior college after they transfer out of the four-year school, and they think they're going to run through the league and hit 450 with 12 homers and 52 RBIs and stuff. Why don't you talk real briefly about the level of competition in the ACCAC?
Yeah. I mean, as we all know, in Arizona, a lot of kids come back. I mean, for weather, they weren't, whatever it may be, but you're always on the field, good exposure. Yeah, and guys come back and they think that, I was at a Division I or even a Division II, and JUCO's a step down. I'm going to tell you it's the exact opposite. The league is really, really difficult. Every year we have, dozens and dozens of guys going to Power 5 schools. We have guys getting drafted left and right. I mean, just to give a quick snapshot, I remember last year we were in Las Vegas and watching San Jack play Central Arizona, and they have the big right-hander. I keep forgetting his name, but they had a big left-hander here this year too. Ended up being the 12th pick in the draft last year. But he was hitting 97, 99 with a 92-mile-an-hour slider. And then they brought in Luke Little, who's probably going to be a top 2 or 3 round draft pick this year. 6'8" left-hander, has been up to 103 this year. So I'm not saying that's what you see on a daily basis, but you're going to see guys that want to grind. They want something. They want to get to the next level. They're looking to compete. And sometimes when guys come backwards, they think it's just going to be handed to them. But there's someone behind you that's wanting to take your job.
Well, I know if I was playing today, I could not hit 103. I think my threshold is about 93, and over that I was pretty toast. I can't imagine 103. But Rob, I want to thank you for your time today. Like I said, I know it's a usual time for everybody who want to be on the baseball field, not doing Zoom calls or whatnot too. But I think you gave our people a lot to think about. So thank you for your time today.
I really appreciate it too. And everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and this thing will be over one day, and we just got to stay through it together.
Perfect.